1 Kings chapter 19. This is after the books of Samuel and before the books of Chronicles in the Old Testament. And let me start with this. There are certain sounds that get my attention right away. Whether it's a tornado siren in the distance, whether it is an ambulance while I'm driving, or, and my folks who are here today know this, if your fire alarm runs out of battery in your house and just goes beep and continues that for a really long time, and it's just really annoying. But anyways, it gets my attention because it's trying to tell me something. There's one sound that I know full well that when it happens, I know I better listen. As a kid, when growing up, Mom was never very good into high pitch, but there was a couple words that she said that I knew as soon as she said it, I better listen. And it was Kyle Michael, which is my first name and middle name, and Tyler James, which is my brother's first name and middle name. Now, Tatiana, she never said your name, but I think we all know why, because you're better than me and my brother. So, but whenever she said Kyle Michael, I knew, even if it was really soft or a little bit louder, you better listen. You better listen to what is coming next. And that is one of those sounds that grabs my attention. In this passage, we see that. We see a sound that the Lord gives to Elijah, that when it happens, Elijah pays attention, it grabs his attention, and what comes next is life-changing, not only for him, but for the country of Israel. So let's start with reading the text in 1 Kings 19, verses 9 through 18. There he came to a cave and lodged in it, and behold, the word of the Lord came to him, and he said to him, "What are you doing here, Elijah?" He said, "I've been very jealous for the Lord, the God of hosts, for the people of Israel have forsaken your covenant, thrown down your altars, and killed your prophets with the sword, and I, even I only, am left. And they seek my life to take it away." And he said, "Go out and stand on the mount before the Lord." And behold, the Lord passed by, and a great and strong wind tore the mountains and broke in pieces the rocks before the Lord. But the Lord wasn't in the wind. And after the wind, an earthquake. But the Lord wasn't in the earthquake. And after the earthquake, a fire. But the Lord wasn't in the fire. And after the fire, the sound of a low whisper. And when Elijah heard it, he wrapped his face in his cloak and went out and stood at the entrance of the cave. And behold, there came a voice to him and said, "What are you doing here, Elijah?" He said, "I've been very jealous for the Lord, the God of hosts. For the people of Israel have forsaken your covenant, thrown down your altars, and killed your prophets with the sword. And I, even I only, am left, and they seek my life to take it away." And the Lord said to him, "Go, return on your way to the wilderness of Damascus. And when you arrive, you shall anoint Hazael to be king over Syria, and Jehu, the son of Nimshi, you shall anoint to be king over Israel, and Elisha, the son of Shaphat of Abel-Maholah, you shall anoint to be prophet in your place. And the one who escapes from the sword of Hazael shall Jehu put to death, and the one who escapes from the sword of Jehu shall Elisha put to death. Yet I will leave 10,000 in Israel, all the knees that have not bowed to Baal, and every mouth that has not kissed him." The main idea is this. Since the Lord uses numerous things to grab or get our attention, listen to the words of the Lord and follow the plan that he has for your life. We see this in 4 main points. In the midst of our greatest triumphs and highs in life, be alert for sin that is crouching and waiting around the corner. Even though the Lord knows all that you are going through, do not hesitate to bring your requests and situations to God. Since the Lord makes his presence known in many ways, be alert to his presence and respond accordingly. And finally, even in the midst of death and threats, rest in the knowledge that the Lord is in control. So in the midst of our greatest triumphs and highs in life, be alert for sin that is crouching and waiting around the corner. One of my favorite parts about this passage is it comes after one of the greatest stories in the Bible in 1 Kings chapter 18, when Elijah is on the Mount Carmel. And it's Carmel, not Caramel, because that's something else. It's Mount Carmel. And on Mount Carmel, he is facing off against not only prophets of Baal, but Baal itself. Baal was an idol that was made to enrich the life of those who worshipped him, except for one thing: it was an idol and it wasn't God. But the Israelites fell to this idolatry and worshipped Baal to the point where they pushed God, Jehovah, aside. So the Lord said, all right, I want to face off against Baal. I want to face off against him and show the people of Israel that I am God and God alone. And so they make this challenge on Mount Carmel, and the Lord shows up in fire, burning up a sacrifice on a wood altar that is soaked with water. It's phenomenal. And the prophets of Baal are put to death. And you think the story is over. But not so. In order to understand this passage correctly, we must understand the historical context, which is what we have in chapter 18. And some responded in awe to the Lord. However, in chapter 19, the chapter that we are in right now, in verse 2, then Jezebel sent a messenger to Elijah, saying, so may the gods do to me and more also, if I do not make your life as the life of one of them, the prophets who are dead, by this time tomorrow. The queen of the land, Jezebel, was not one of those people that was in awe of the Lord. She was with Baal and had it out for Elijah, for him to be killed. The reason I cautioned in this main point about sin being around the corner was how Elijah responded to the situation. He responds not in trusting the Lord, but fear. In chapter 19, verse 3, then he was afraid, Elijah, and he arose and ran for his life and came to Beersheba, which belongs to Judah, and left his servants there. Now, I'm not blaming Elijah for his response. Let's be honest, I would have that same response. However, the next verse shows that it was fear, not just being cautious or, being scared of something, but it was fear that drove Elijah to leave. Elijah asked the Lord to take his life from him because of his situation with Jezebel in verse 4. But he himself went a day's journey into the wilderness and came and sat down under a broom tree. And he asked that he might die, saying, it is enough. Now, O Lord, take away my life, for I am no better than my father's. This does not sound like the same man who challenged the king of Israel, laughed at the priests of Baal, and proved that his God was and is the only God. Instead, it sounds like a man who was defeated by his circumstances. So even when we have times where we feel we are the closest to the Lord, our sin, whether it be fear, depression, anxiety, whether it be pride, is ever waiting for us to indulge in sin again. And when we do sin again, we feel like life is over, and the Lord